Doing good. I'm so glad that we're able to have you today. Guys, if you don't know today's topic, today we're talking about whole healing and tactics for abuse recovery. This session is going to be jam-packed. It's really important that you take notes if you feel like you need to, because Dr. Annie has given me personally a lot of great tactics to use in my healing, and she's just an all-around wonderful person. If you are not following her page, make sure you do. There's something about her that just brings this peace when I talk to her, so I hope that you feel the same way.
I'm really touched. That's not what my abusive ex-husband would have said, but still.
It's the opinions that matter, right?
Yeah.
Not his. Dr. Annie, could you please just give the audience, you do so many different things. I wanted them to hear from you what you do and why you're so passionate about this work.
Well, I've been working with abused women for the best part of 15 years, and the reason that I do that is because I was one. I was married to a healthcare professional, and I totally lost myself because he had the monopoly on sanity and wisdom and so many things. And it was a pretty dreadful time of my life because I lost myself. And eventually he made me choose between him and my dog. And I found myself saying, well, it's a no-brainer. It's got to be the dog, which was the beginning of my liberation, because I thought, you know, what on earth is going on here that a maniac makes me choose between my dog and himself? And the more I discovered as I went through my own healing process about what had actually been going on, the more I was outraged that other women were also walking through this torment in silence and being blamed for what was not their fault, for being totally blackened and abused, and thinking, my God, I just have to try harder because this is a good man who is suffering because I'm not good enough. This is my fault. And the more I saw the machinations, the more I felt, hell, you know, I can't change my own past, but I'll do whatever I can to change other women's.
That is so important too. If you have ever felt that when you were with your ex, or if you're currently with somebody and you can't respond now, that's fine too. But can I get an amen for the feeling like you have to try to fix the situation because the problem is you and not them? That is so powerful, and it's so true. That makes so much sense. You know, I want to make sure we do get through all of the topics that we had.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things that hit me the most was how you organized some of that healing process, and how there's so many different things that we can do, and it's hard to find what works exactly for you, but it all stems on some of the same core values. What do you feel was the best step toward healing once you left your abuser?
Well, I think the first thing is information, because you've got to understand why it has happened to you, that you were not dealing with an individual, you were dealing with an abusive narcissist, and you need to know why they behaved as they did, why it was not your fault, and why you can never make it work. I think that's hugely impossible. And then you have to turn your focus back to yourself. Once you have the information, you've got to say, okay, I understand that I was never to blame. I was not to blame for that person's behavior. However, the only person who can manage my healing is me. And that's what I've got to focus on now. I have to become the kind of person that no abuser will ever be able to hook in again. Because, I mean, for myself, I knew it would kill me. And nobody can afford that to happen again. So you have to go into yourself, discover your vulnerabilities with love. You have to learn to love yourself, and you have to rebuild, which all sounds huge and difficult and immensely challenging. Because the first fact is, we didn't like ourselves that much in the first place, or we wouldn't have settled for a creep. It's just a fact of life. But you have to start where you can. And the answer is that is probably going to be very small. There'll be a load of helpful people who tell you what you should be doing. And probably one of the early things that you need to learn is that if anybody starts shoulding you, anybody who says should, that is a clue that they don't know what you're going through, and you do best to ignore them. They have not walked your path, they don't have empathy with your path, or they don't have sufficient empathy. So thank them very much for their help and ignore them. Sorry. So that's one really important part of your process. The next thing is really to understand that you are quite fragile. Abuse victims never give themselves credit for being fragile. They should themselves. Well, it's been 3 months. I should be over it by now. I shouldn't feel like this. I should get back in the saddle. I should be dating. I should have sorted out my life. I should have... No, you can't. You really cannot. Sorry about this. You have to start from where you are. Start very small. Acknowledge your wobbles. Acknowledge your frailties. Acknowledge that there'll be times when if you get out of bed, it's an achievement.
Yes.
It really is. Dragging yourself through the day with no makeup on, and a messy home, that's fine. You're hurting like crazy. You have to own it. And another very important part is starting to find some good feelings. And I found that when people are really, really down, normal affirmations, every day and every way things are getting better, really makes you feel bad. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. Because it's so far removed from you. It's like, that's not at all where I am.
Absolutely. So you've got to find a way of lifting your own spirits. And I'm aware that that's a big ask. And I say this as an ex-most miserable woman on the planet. One of the things that worked for me and has worked incredibly well for hundreds of clients and thousands of newsletter readers is the 20 daily celebrations. This is as cheap as chips. All you need is a notebook, something to write in, and at the end of the day, you have to make the stretch of finding 20 things to celebrate in the day. Oh. And I am fully aware that when you feel terrible, that is a huge ask. And that is the point. Because as you do it, you actually have to notice that there were good things in your day. Mm-hmm. We all have filters that we apply to our thinking all the time. And so when you're in a down place, everything looks black. When you're having to look for your 20 daily celebrations, and we say celebrations, not gratitude, because, most of us find it very offensive when someone says, you should be grateful for whatever it is. Yeah. Celebrations, things that you have. So even when you're in a terrible place, you probably have running hot water. You probably have a roof over your head. You might have a child who smiles at you and who loves you. You can go outside, see the sunshine, see the flowers, whatever it is, however small, however pathetic it may sound, it's not. If someone smiles at you and appreciates you, these are all part of your 20 celebrations that you're meant to be noting every day.
Yes. That makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
And, it makes me think, too, because as you guys are watching, tell me if you can relate to this, but I feel like I stopped noticing some of those little things when I was with them because you're constantly worried. We talked about the cycle of abuse. Go check that out on the IGTV. But because you're constantly in this fearful stage and then something happens and then you're trying to deal with this emotional reconciliation and the love bombing and the crazy apologies and you're just hoping that it's getting better, you don't have time to focus anywhere else.
Absolutely.
All of your focus is there. So being able to go outside and see something, one of my family members is a positive parenting author. And one of the things she used to always tell us when we were younger is go outside and stand under a tree. It's really hard to get stuck in yourself when you're under a humongous tree and you see every little leaf on there and you stop, you get out of your head. It's kind of the same thing that Mel Robbins talks about, right? In the 5-second rule. You're interrupting that thought process.
Absolutely.
I think that's so beautiful, but there is always something to celebrate. And I like the distinction between the gratitude, because I never thought of that. I'm a big gratitude journaler. I did do that after I left. Started it back up, right? Because I kind of stopped when things were rough. But I think that's beautiful. And one thing that you made me think of too was when you're talking about that hurt, because sometimes we recognize that we're hurting and it's very hard to flip that and say there's anything to celebrate, right? I drug myself out of bed. I didn't get my hair done. I forgot this for the school today. You know, all the other mothers had it down and they were great. So, you know, I'm that parent who didn't. There's all of those things that sit there because you're dealing with something completely different that maybe a lot of your family and your friends don't understand, which is why you come here, right? You come to our online support group and you find people who do understand. But that hurt, that process, for me, was part of that celebration. I broke down today. That's okay. I got through that piece of that. That part is done. I don't have to break down for that again. But, you know, it's all those things. And like you said, it's this mentality that we put on ourselves. We put pressure on ourselves, right? We've been putting pressure on ourselves to make them happy, to try to correct situations that we can't possibly control. But we put that on ourselves, and we do the same thing when we try to heal. It's, well, I've hit 3 months. I've hit 1 year. I've hit 5 years. I've hit 10 years. I shouldn't even think about this anymore. There should be no more triggers. You know, I should be here. And all of that is completely here. And it's just another way that we kind of bring ourselves back down and we're attacking ourselves. We have so much to work on, so much positivity waiting ahead of us. We got to stop attacking ourselves too.
Absolutely. And, you know, talking about things to celebrate, waking up in the morning and there's only you in the bed and there's not going to be any tension and fights before you even get out of bed. That is a beautiful thing.
It really is.
It really is.
Thing, but it changes everything.
It is, yeah, it does. And, you know, I think we have frailties and we will have frailties for the rest of our lives. Everybody does. But the better we get at saying, yep, that's a frailty, the less they affect us. So you can be triggered and you can say, yep, that's me being triggered again, and I feel my own hurt, I acknowledge it, and that trigger can just fade away in a matter of minutes. It doesn't have to destroy you or destroy a day. And I'm very aware of time, so I just wanted to mention that I have prepared a giveaway for you and your audience, which is 20 healing affirmations. And these are affirmations helping you to actually own where you are and be at peace with yourself, as opposed to try and be happy about where you're not.
Yes.
So, yeah, because people seem to struggle with that. So available through my website, recoverfromemotionalabuse.com/healing affirmations, and there's a PDF that you can download. So it's just to get yourself into that mindset of having affirmations that work for you, so you can start to accept and be at peace with yourself.
Oh, awesome. I'll make sure to put that link in the notes too when we push this live on the IGTV so that everybody can go and get it. Thank you so much for making that for us. Before I let you go, I have to ask you about one thing, because when we were talking the first time, you brought up this concept of the feisty inner child. Can you tell us more about the feisty inner child?
Yeah. My experience is that everybody that I've come across who's been abused as an adult suffered abuse in childhood. There were times when they were shouted down, as we say in the UK, slapped down, even if it's only verbally. And they learned that the best way to survive was to hide. And they became very sad. But actually, inside you, if you go back and check, I have always found this with clients, there is a feisty inner child. So you've got an adult who is scared of dealing with abusers, scared because of the programming that she has encountered along the way. And when you go back and check with the feisty inner child, when you've made friends with her and check with her and you say to her, what do you say about that? You'd be amazed. She just says, that person's a scumbag, don't have anything to do with them. And it is so validating getting that from inside yourself. Does that make sense?
It does, it does. And one of the reasons, we don't talk about it often, but the actual name Remind Her had a similar meaning to that. The fact that if we saw this in anybody else, we know right away. But when it becomes us and we get caught in the emotions and we allow all the past trauma and past experiences bring us down into it, we decide very differently than what we normally would. And it's always in us. We just need to remind ourselves of who we are, who we used to be. And yes, it's Remind Her, but it's really for anybody. Everybody has that inside them. Oh, that's so awesome.
And what I've found very much so is that you get this mindset, pardon me, that you are worthless as a result of abuse. And even people who are struggling with that sense of their own worthlessness, when they go back and befriend their inner child, when they see that young self, they feel immense tenderness for her. They accept how precious she is, and they show respect to her that they don't show to their adult self. So that's a really useful way of starting to become aware of the worth that you have always had.
Yes. Because again, it doesn't change your worth. How somebody treats you never changes your worth. It changes how they valued you, and we have to listen to that. We have to listen to how people tell us who they are. We can't ignore it. We have to listen to it.
We do, and it tells you an awful lot about who they are, because anybody who can behave like a scumbag is a scumbag. It's that simple. It's got nothing to do with you. It's all about them.
Yes. And you've mentioned the vulnerabilities and being able to connect to your vulnerabilities and recognize them, because we go through so much of our lives anymore being so busy that self-reflection, even in and of itself, becomes depleted. We just don't do it. We don't take the time. We don't value it. But being able to recognize your vulnerabilities and see them as the vulnerabilities that they are, and not necessarily as this awful, almost complete weakness. We look at our vulnerabilities and we see what other people did to those areas of us, and we see them as negative. And really, they could be our greatest positive. If we weren't okay with our vulnerabilities now, you and I wouldn't be here doing what we're doing. When you recognize somebody walking down the street, I was talking to somebody this weekend, and they were talking about how they can almost tell by looking in someone's eyes if they're in an abusive relationship, because they started to recognize that in themselves. So now they're actually able to see that in other people. Anybody else would tell you that's your vulnerability. That's your weakness, because you had this. You're less than. And really, it's not. It's all in what we do with what we have. How we
Totally. And I always wonder, these women who are so unkind to themselves, they are so fantastically kind to other people in the same situation. So how can vulnerability make you unworthy if you can show that respect for other people in exactly the same situation?
Oh, yes. And our vulnerability is what connects us to other people.
Totally.
It's what keeps us humble, and it's what helps us connect and realize what other people are going through so that we can be those great people that we're meant to be. It's how we do a better service, as human beings, as people in our community, and just as women as a whole. And that's what we see on our page every single day. You guys blow me away. I was talking to somebody the other day with another nonprofit for homeless families. And I was able to just pull up and show her, look at what they do for each other. Look at how they rally around each other. If you put a comment where you're beating up on you, they come right in. This is your group of survivors. This is what you are. But you look at these people and you say, I was one of them. I am one of them. And I saw nothing but weakness in myself. I saw nothing but hatred for myself when I left. You know, look at what I did to my life. Look what I did to my child. Look at the decisions I made. And then you turn around and you go, this is the community that I'm joining into. And nobody here seems weak. Everybody here seems incredibly strong and incredibly passionate and beautiful on the inside now. But yet we never gave that to ourselves. We never wanted to recognize that in ourselves. It's really amazing to see. I love what you guys are doing. Keep it up. Please, please keep connecting with one another in that mentorship. It's the things that keep us going. But remember that your vulnerabilities are not negatives. They're something that you can use. It's something that the world needs from you is to be able to recognize those things for sure.
Totally. Can I just add another piece about vulnerabilities? Because obviously when you've been through an emotionally abusive relationship or any kind of abusive relationship, you don't ever want to be vulnerable again. You don't ever want to expose yourself. So there's the piece that, yes, you are incredibly valuable as you are with your sensitivities, whether you choose to call them vulnerabilities or not. However, the other piece is that you have a right to learn to protect yourself. And that's the piece that most of us find it really hard to work out, how you balance being who you are with actually having a right to say no to others and say, actually, you're not safe for me, back off. And you can, of course, be a person who's open-hearted, sensitive, vulnerable, all of this, and you still have that right. Nobody has the right to come up and stab you just because you are a nice person. And that should be blindingly obvious, but actually it isn't to most people.
100%. Yeah, and you have to protect the kind pieces of you from becoming hard, but also because if you are with somebody that sucks all of that out of you, everything has to be about giving, and it just zaps your entire soul. If you can relate to it zapping your soul, give us a high five, give us a heart on here. It zaps everything in you, and you not yourself. And I don't, you never become worthless, but your value feels diminished because you can't give to anyone else. And a lot of us are givers. We want the connection and we want to be able to help, and we just turn it in the wrong direction. And that's not a problem with us. We're victimized. But it's something that we can take control of. There's so many things that they've told you this entire time that you cannot control. You never have any control. And then you take a step back and you go, not today. It isn't my control. I'm going to do this today.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have to say that there is this fear of becoming hard.
Yes.
And it's not true. It cannot happen. We do not become hard. It's actually this, it's another way of saying, if you don't give me, if you're not a doormat for me and everybody else, you will be selfish. No, you won't.
Right.
You will not be selfish, but if you do give to people who don't value what you give, you will be robbed of yourself. It's kind of like if you're running a bath, if you run baths in these days, and, you know, you don't bother to put the plug in, you know, and the water just runs away. What's the point of wasting water? What's the point of wasting your valuable love and care on, you know, an open drain?
That's such a great metaphor for that. I love that. I'm going to start using that. It makes perfect sense.
Yes. I'm not sure my ex-husband would appreciate that one either.
Dr. Annie, thank you so much for being with us. Do you have a reminder to give our audience today?
Do I have a reminder? Sorry, can I just take a second to think of this? There was something that sprang to my mind. Oh, yes, it's playing with saying no, because that's such a huge thing for anybody who's been through abuse. As saying no is really scary. So you want to practice your no muscle. And the best way to practice it is with people who care about you. So that, you know, they ask you for something small, and you say, no, not today, thanks. Because they can deal with it. And then as you get more comfortable saying no, you can use it with people that are not so safe and feel much more comfortable. And when you're comfortable saying no, even people who are a bit intimidating are more likely to go, oh, okay then, because it's the quality of the no that counts.
Yes, that's a beautiful one. I love that. Definitely finding the ways to practice that muscle, because I think you're so right. It is a muscle. It's something we have to practice doing. And it can feel super awkward and just not like us, right?
Yes. So you do it with a close friend or a trusted family member, you know, like if they say, would you make me a cup of tea or something? You say, no, not today, because they'll deal with it. And you'll start to feel that you can do it without it, you know, destroying you.
Yes, I love that. Everybody, please make sure you go on, follow Dr. Annie. She has some amazing content that she puts out. I will also make sure that the link to the download of the affirmations is in here as soon as we post on IGTV this week, so that you have it, download it, and do us a favor. Tell Dr. Annie how you used it and what it did for you this week. Let's make that our challenge for this week, to make sure we download it. And then follow up. Make sure there's some follow through there, and hold each other accountable. Find a partner here on the page and see how this impacts you and your healing journey. Thank you again, Dr. Annie. I'm so excited that we were able to take some time and talk to you. I know you're across the pond, and sometimes our scheduling is a little bit difficult, but this was amazing, and I wouldn't have had it any other